You should have a recording in progress notification that pops up on your screen. So today our presenter is going to be Ms. Mariel from the Farmer Veteran Coalition. My name is Harley Moore and I'm with the Native Agricultural Financial Services. We will be talking about emergency preparedness today through an extension risk management education grant of the Southern, Western, and North Central Education Centers. I will be turning it over to Ms. Sandy Martini to tell you a little bit about the Native Agricultural Financial Services. And then after that, Ms. Mariel will do our presentation.
Thanks, Harley. Welcome. And we appreciate you taking the time today to join us for this very important discussion and PowerPoint presentation on emergency preparedness. And we want you to know that feel free to put questions in the chat and stop us anytime to ask questions. Just raise your hand or put it in the chat and we will stop and talk to you. This is a discussion, so we're here to answer anything that y'all may need to know. The Native Agriculture Financial Services is hosting this along with the Farmer Veteran Coalition, and the Native Agriculture Financial Services is a lender, and we are here to fill the gap in lending. We work with CDFIs nationally around the country and also with Farm Credit and filling the gap in any kind of lending. We also are technical assistance providers, and that is what this project is all about. And I'm going to hand it over to our presenter today, and thank you all again for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Sandy. My name is Mariel Kesnick, and I work for the Farmer Veteran Coalition. I have been farming since 2015, and I was married to the Army for 24 years. So I have a variety of experience farming throughout the United States in different duty stations that we were, and very happy to be with the Farmer Veteran Coalition. Farmer Veteran Coalition is the nation's largest nonprofit with a mission of mobilizing veterans to feed America. We have farmers throughout the United States, and we work with them on career counseling, technical assistance, apprenticeships, business planning, market access, and a variety of other services. Farmer Veteran Coalition was founded in 2009, and our national office is in Waco, Texas. This slide gives you a little bit of the demographics of our members. Okay, so emergency preparedness. A lot has been happening in the news with everything happening on the East Coast and throughout the last spring with the tornadoes that we were having throughout the country, and more emergencies will happen. Emergency preparedness is a systematic approach to prepare for and respond to and recover from emergencies. But it's not always large-scale emergencies. It can be at the national level when we have the pandemic. It can be regional with a natural disaster or a fire, but it can also be a family emergency. It could be an emergency if there's a death in your family or a divorce that you're not prepared for, or it could be just someone getting sick or an employee breaking a leg or getting hurt on the farm. Emergencies need to be pre-planned for so that you can sustain your operation during it and after it. This presentation, we're going to talk about the documents needed, medical information, household information, what happens if you shelter in place, and what do you need to be prepared for that, as well as evacuation plans, caring for your farm, and crop insurance. Documentation. Now, hopefully you are organized and have everything labeled and it's all in one place. But chances are a lot of you probably have documents shoved in different file folders, in boxes, in different places throughout your home or on different files in your computer. It's really important to gather everything in one place and be able to have it preserved correctly. You should have a first copy of your documents that we'll go over in the next slide in a flood-proof and a fireproof box in your home office. You should also then have a second copy that you have with a family member or a friend who does not live with you. What happens if your house burns down or you have a flood and everything's destroyed or it's ripped up, like in my neighborhood, we had tornadoes this spring, and you lose everything? It's really important to have an extra set of the documents and the copies with somebody outside of your family. You should also have a third copy in a safe deposit box, or if you feel comfortable, backed up on the cloud. I know a lot of our veteran members don't live with family members, and friends come and go as we are PCSing and moving throughout the country. So having a safe deposit box or a backup system is really important. Here's some of the documents that you should have all in one place and copies of. Now, this might change for your particular family and farm operation, but your driver's license, copies of any concealed carry permits, birth certificates, adoption papers, social security cards, tribal paperwork, passports, wills and trust documents, citizenship papers, marriage or divorce decrees, child custody papers, copies of your military ID for both you and anyone in your household, copies of medical records, your DD-214, and your VA documents, medical records, prescriptions for you or your family members, and of your pets or farm animals, copies of financial records, health insurance cards, personal or property insurance records, and your password list. I don't know about you, but I don't actually know my passwords, but Google does, and it's all it's all remembered for me, either on my phone or on my computer. But what would happen if I didn't have my computer or I didn't have my phone? What if I was at an emergency shelter and I was accessing my bank account or my other documents from a computer at a library or the shelter? Would I actually remember my passwords and be able to access? So it's really important to have those in a list and have that in a secured place. Medical information. Current conditions, medications, any allergies or conflicts with medications, vaccination records, medical history. Do you have a preference of what hospital you would be taken to? Do you have any restrictions on care that you would or could receive? Do you have a medical power of attorney? And what is your emergency contact information? Not just for you, but what about someone else in your household? For example, if you're the head of the household and you know all this information, but you are not available to make these decisions, would the next in line to make these decisions for you be prepared? Household pets. When we were going through the tornado, all of my kids grabbed up their favorite animal and rushed them down to the basement to keep everybody safe. Our pets are often part of our family and our loved ones too. But do you have documentation showing that the animal is yours? What if the animal got separated from you due to a fire or a flood? Would you be able to locate and claim that animal? Here's some of the information that's recommended for you to have on your pet. In addition, all of us usually have pictures of our animals on our phone, but do you have a picture of yourself with your pet? I've heard too many sad stories of people in a disaster trying to find their animal and going to a shelter to claim, but they don't actually have proof that that's their cat or dog. Nowadays, with social media and AI, it's unfortunately too easy to take a picture from someone else's account and claim it as yours. So it's really important that you start gathering pictures of you with your animal now in the event that it would happen. Each of my pets, thankfully for technology, are microchipped. They also have a collar with their name, our address, and our phone number on it. And they also have air tags on their collar. So at any time, I can locate one of our pets. Critical items to have in this binder of documents or this safe that you have with everything. Your title and deed to your house, mortgage paper, rental agreement or lease agreement if you're farming, copies of your lease agreements, keys to the safe deposit box, spare keys. You might need a spare key to your tractor, your four-wheeler, your property, external drive and cloud information, homeowner insurance paperwork, tax records, photos of household possessions. That came in very handy for many people throughout the United States going through tornadoes. People throughout the state could locate and find, they could show the information of what they were missing, and others throughout social media were able to help gather and find their possessions. Cash, credit cards. For livestock, it's important to have the copy of the farm animal records, the number of animals that you have, documentation of registration, pictures of the animals, and farm operational documents like copies of your EIN, your state ID, your USDA farm number. What happens if you need to shelter in place? You have all your documents, you have everything ready, but then something happens, a tornado or earthquake, or like we did in the pandemic, and you need to shelter in place for a period of time. And it's unlikely that you know exactly what that period of time might be. It's suggested that everyone be prepared for a 2-week survival kit for you and your family. But as farmers and producers, this also means that we need a 2-week survival kit for our livestock. It's important that you pause, that you evaluate, and you think through the most important aspects. You need food, you need water, you need shelter, you need medical and personal supplies. And what about extra things? Like if you're farming and you are using your tractor or your four-wheeler to get grain to some of your animals, what about extra gasoline for your farm equipment? It's important that you sit back and you go through your daily farm operations, your daily family operations, to know exactly how much of the food or the water that you need, and to start gathering that. It will impact your budget. You also need to find a place to store this, but it's worth it. What about an evacuation plan? If you are in a situation where you needed to leave your house, say in a fire, or for example, my family was stationed at Offutt Air Force Base, and due to the mission of the base and the potential terrorist threats of an IED attack, IED meaning all electronics would be not working. So that would be our phones, computers, ATMs, anything run off electronics, to include vehicles. What would happen if you needed to leave your house or had to come back to your house? Would you be prepared? Our family had an IED kit in every vehicle. That would allow me, if I was shopping 20 miles away from my house and my house had our 2-week survival kits, it would allow me to get myself and my children back from the grocery store, walking all the way back to our home base that had everything else that we needed. In that kit, or in a kit that you would need if you were evacuating your house due to a fire, you should have a 3-day supply of water and food per person. Really important that the food that you prepare and put in your kit avoid sugar. Have it be high in calories, in carbs, and protein, something that will sustain you through those days. Clothing. Think about extra clothes, dry clothes, layering. And also keep in mind your seasons, and you might need to change out what's in your kit as the seasons change. Also consider multi-purpose items, such as a poncho that could be used as a tent. Light sources are important, flashlights, batteries. If you're leaving and evacuating your house due to a fire, do you have an extra battery pack to charge your cell phone or your computer? 550 cord. Can openers. If you're packing canned goods, but you forget the can opener, that could cause a problem. Maps and compasses, and actually knowing how to use them. Training your employees or your children on how to use them is really a good information to have. Medical supplies, toiletries, antibiotic cream, all of these things that you should pause and think through and evaluate to put into your kit. Make sure that your evacuation kit is something that you can actually carry. What about caring for your farm animals? Many of us producers have chickens or rabbits, horses, cows, pigs. What do we do in the event of an emergency for farm animals? Harley's going to drop in the chat box a PDF file that we have prepared for you that specifically talks about caring for your animals. And anything that I miss in this brief discussion will be shared with you in that. But if a flooding happens and you can't get to your animals, or a fire, do they have what they need? Or is there a way for you to navigate getting to it? You know your property best, you know the layout of the land. For our family, we moved to Nebraska in about 2015, and it's very mild here. And in the winter, temperatures are normally, if it gets low, maybe in the 30s. And in 2019, we were hit with, in January of 2019, we were hit with a polar vortex. So normal temperatures that everyone's used to is around in the 30s. Sometimes it can drop into the 20s, freezing temperatures. That's fine. But this polar vortex had us drop in a matter of 3 days to negative 30 degrees, and the wind chill was horrific. Animals were freezing in the barns. People that had prepared with extra hay for the winter, it still wasn't enough. Our water systems were not prepared to stay thawed. And so even the water heaters that we had in the matter of those 3 days were continually freezing up. Caring for the animals became a problem because the emergency contacts that all of us depend on in our region, were like the farmers next door, they were all suffering the same emergency. And so who we had originally planned on our contact list was not actually available. So I would challenge you, when you build up your emergency contacts, to think about outside of your box. Because if you're going through an emergency, chances are your fellow farmers are as well. In that instance, we needed to rely on some of our urban friends that had no idea what farming was, but they were willing and they were able to learn and provide assistance. And that was extremely helpful. The daily care of the animals. Who is going to care for them if you, the primary caretaker, is not able to? And would they even be able to find out what to do? In each of our barn setups, I have two things that are mounted on the board in laminated to protect it from the elements. One, I have a picture of each of the animals. Now, when we have 40 to 60 cows in the pasture, I don't have pictures of all of them. But when I have 12 of my goats and they each have a different name and they each have a different picture, I have pictures of each of them listed on the board, and I have their names, and I have any identifying information or anything health concerns specific to that animal. And that's laminated in the goat barn or in the rabbit hutch. In addition, I also have laminated instructions and everything labeled with the food and the bins and clear instructions written. So absolutely anybody at any time that knows nothing about my farm operation could walk into my facility, and as long as they can read, they can find all the information that is necessary to take care of my animals. There's clear, simple instructions, and it's all in one location. So I would encourage you to take the opportunity to think through and to write it out. Don't take for granted that you know everything, but what happens if something happens to you? Labor management is really important, especially when it comes to a natural disaster. And volunteers in your area are going to be taxed. All the volunteers are going to be helping multiple people in your area. So how much labor do you actually need? In the event of an emergency, emotions are going to rise. Things are going to not be as clear. So take your time now to really think through and write down what are the hours needed and what are the tasks, so that in the event something happens, you can think clearly and have it documented. Now, hopefully you guys are planning and you're thinking through what you can do to be prepared, and you've got your 2-week reserve and you're set. But what happens if you need to obtain resources that go longer than the 2 weeks? Think back to the COVID-19 pandemic, which for many of us throughout the United States lasted much longer than 2 weeks. Are you prepared for getting the resources that you need? Is there a compiled list of where you get your hay for your animals, your grain? Does it include the place, the contact person, how they're contacted? And I would even recommend having a price written down on there, so that in the event of an emergency, if somebody else is calling and trying to negotiate getting hay or something for your animals, that they have a starting base of what you usually pay. Market operations. If something happens, will your business stay? Will you stay in business financially if your market suddenly disappears? When the restaurants were closing down and producers who were growing herbs and lettuce and vegetables only selling to restaurants, and that source of income stopped, were they able to pivot? Some were, and some weren't. You need to be able to have everything prepared and think through, so that when an emergency happens, you're not scrambling to survive. Instead, you're able to put that energy into thriving and strategically thinking outside the box to figure out another source of income. Now we get into crop insurance. Crop and livestock insurance can help you in the event of adverse weather, a drought, if you were hit with insect or fire. And livestock insurance is for anything, basically, it includes bees as well, that is not considered a personal pet. The insurance is a policy that you buy, and then it's very much like your homeowner's insurance. So you buy the policy. If your crop or your animals fail or die due to an unusual death, you notify the agent and you file a claim. When the claim comes through, you receive a payout, and that payout allows you to replant or to purchase new livestock. And that helps your farm continue. There's a difference between crop and livestock insurance and USDA disaster assistance programs. Your crop and livestock insurance is paid separately, much like I had said, an insurance policy on your home. But many times USDA also offers assistance for producers if they have a farm number on record with their office. It's important to have a relationship with your local FSA and NCRS office so that you are set up with a farm number. Once your farm is in the system with this number, you'll be notified if your farm qualifies for any of the disaster programs. From personal experience, as a beginning farmer years ago, one thing that I always like to tell people who might be in the beginning stage is that pictures are key. Back in 2019, when we were hit with the polar vortex, I had 500 chickens freeze. It was devastating. In that moment, in the emotions of all of this going on and trying not to have more death to the animals on my farm, I did not know that I needed to take pictures of the loss. So when I went into my FSA office a couple months later, after the emotions had calmed down and I was like ready to file, I didn't have the supporting documents to prove. I had the supporting documents to prove that I had 500 chickens. Hold on. But I did not have pictures showing the death or the cause of death. Excuse me. So even though that's not a position that it's not a position you want to be in, it's important to think clearly and have the information and have the evidence to support your claim. I love this quote by Benjamin Franklin because it is so true. If you are failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And this goes for every part of your family, your business. So take a moment to stop and think and prepare. Gather all your documents. Write everything out so that in the event you're no longer there or able temporarily to help, other people can come in and help. Here's a few resources that can help you in your journey as you're gathering information. And these will also be shared in the slides that'll be emailed to you. And again, I just want to thank the Native Agricultural Financial Services for letting me speak. And here's the information on the Farmer Veteran Coalition. Harley, I'll pass it back to you. And I'd love to hear questions and comments.
Yeah, please feel free. I'm going to try to switch it over where everyone has the ability to talk. If they have questions, you don't have to. Somebody did put a question here in the chat. Possibly. So I'm going to allow everybody to talk. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or talk. I don't mind either way. Plus, I did in the chat add a link to the post Zoom survey, and we definitely would really appreciate if everyone would take the time to do that post Zoom survey. Mr. William had put I work with the Beginning Farmer and Rancher program in quite a few states here. It looks like 15 or so, serving as a champion for the Risk Management Agency of USDA. The BFR program, the Beginning Farmers and Ranchers program, was established in 2018 by the Farm Bill and brings Risk Management Agency, Farm Service Agency, Natural Resources Conservation Service, and Rural Development together to assist beginning farmers and ranchers to become aware of the different areas we can provide education assistance. Farmer and rancher veterans, thanks. And if Bill, you want to, or William, you want to talk anymore, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, I can say a couple words. I work on the East Coast here out of the regional office, and been involved with the Beginning Farmer program for about 5 years now, and with really seeing the success. And I really appreciate putting the slides or the presentation that was put together, on documentation and information that people would need. I think that's really hitting a home run there.
Well, thank you so much for that. We're glad you joined us today, and to know that there are programs out there that are trying to do a lot of the same things. And I'm sure we will be in contact at some point. We definitely have several tribal nations in your area. And so as the Native Agricultural Financial Services, we do work out in that area. And that's what Miss Sandy had said in the chat back to you. Just letting you know that we're doing some work out in your area. Does anybody else have any other questions or thoughts or comments?
Or experiences that you can share of things that, sometimes we learn through doing things wrong. And if you can share any advice with anyone else on here or for future people listening to the recording, that would be helpful as well.
Did you happen to see Kia's question and answer?
No.
Sandy had answered part of it. And it says, I'm trying to see where I would fit into this. I bought a property in March. June, I had 4 of my goats and a rooster. July, I was hit by Hurricane Beryl. I did not have a farm ID at that time. I got it after I'm hit. I'm still trying to recover from this and have to get transmission rebuilt. It's been a difficult start. I've been in touch with the local office, but I don't feel like I'm getting the help I need. I have yet to submit an application, but I seriously need to. I really don't want to submit anything and have to have it rejected. Oh, yeah.
So anybody else can sign on or add to this, but I'll just share from my personal experience. And I'm sure things are changing. Things are always changing, which is good. But when we started in 2015, our local FSA office, my spouse at the time was Hispanic, and we had some discrimination issues with our office, and they were not willing to assist us. And so we went to the next county over and used the FSA office in the other county, and they were extremely helpful. And then what they did is they helped us build a relationship with our county office. So I know things are always growing and changing, and people are growing and changing, and there's been new light shed on some of the issues, and that's a really good thing. But it's important that we're proactive to instead of, if you get a no or you're getting a stumbling block, just be proactive to maybe go to the next county and continue to build that relationship, and then ask for assistance. And that gets you a really long way.
Yeah, we do have a couple more webinar chats. Jennifer says, I just bought my farm this year and I have bred heifers. Are there any training resources? I know emergencies can happen in birth, and I'd like to be prepared to help deliver the cow-calf.
I don't know of anything online, but that doesn't mean that it's not available. When we were just starting out, so we did cow-calf and goats and pastured pigs, because when we were starting, we did way too much, and then really just pared it back. What I found the most valuable for myself is I actually found a rancher in my area. Well, I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, and this rancher is out in Logan, Iowa. But I found him and connected with him, and I actually spent time working his cow-calf operation with him. And I had to prove to him, because I was new and because I'm also a female, and I had to prove to him that I was worth the salt. And once I did, and I built that relationship, he would call me, because I told him I really want to be there for an emergency situation and I want to help. And then once he would call me, if there was something going on, I'd run out there and I would learn how to pull the calf out and take care of things. And I'm a hands-on learner, so that was valuable to me. I really needed that hands-on, that personal connection. I'm sure there's training online, there's training for everything. So, but I would recommend connecting with somebody that could help mentor you as well.
Well, yeah, and Jennifer, I will say that my local extension office has held a training for the last 3 years on birthing calves and understanding how to help pull a calf if the calf is to get stuck. So I definitely would suggest reaching out to your local extension office and kind of understanding what opportunities. Most of those classes are for free. So that would be more of a hands-on opportunity. They had a demonstration there. And so that at least it's not, live, but gives you a little bit of an idea of somebody to help guide you along. And yes, that is the county, that was my local county extension office, but they utilize the universities here. I'm here in Oklahoma, but I'm sure that your local county extension office should have some type of those same resources.
I was just going to mention, yes, the local county extensions are really a great source. And that's another reason that working together with the Beginning Farmer program, because it becomes a networking type of situation, and you get to know, and also you get into the mentoring thing, or extension especially has a pretty good idea of who's located in the county, and because they're pretty much county based in most all states. So they're definitely a great contact. I worked for Penn State and North Dakota State Extension, and they're really a good source of educational programs, especially coming up in the fall and in the winter months. A lot of people attend extension workshops.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Irene, I did see that your hand was raised. Do you have a question? Okay, maybe not. Does anybody else have any questions or thoughts or comments? Or we really do want to thank you guys for joining us today. I feel like this is such a relevant topic. not only because of the hurricanes that have been happening on the East Coast, but here in the plains areas, we were in a severe drought. And in the last 2 weeks, we have received flooding amounts of rain, which is wonderful because our ponds were so dry. But now we've received so much rain that there has been lots and lots of flooding happening across homes, across fields, across everything. And so we just went from one extreme to the other. And so emergencies and natural disasters and understanding how to prepare for those and just to mitigate those risks as much as possible is such an important idea that we need to wrap our minds around. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. I will be sending out an email with a link to the recording today, along with I will send out a copy of the livestock emergency preparedness document and a link to the post survey. If you guys didn't have a chance to do that, I will probably be sending that out, I would guess tomorrow afternoon, once I have the ability to get this video posted to our YouTube channel. Thank you guys for joining us, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Thank you, Harley.
Thank you.